Tonight, we share some of our favorite stories from 2019.
I really want people to know that these programs work.
The artistic.
I want to be up there behind home plate somewhere and be able to capture the buildings and the city of San Diego.
The inspiring.
And so I just had the thought, if this character doesn't exist, I'm going to create her.
And the awesome.
The highest resolution virtual reality environment on the planet.
The people and moments that stuck with us this year. A special KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Good evening and Merry Christmas. It's Wednesday, December 25th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight, it's a special evening edition as we revisit some of our favorite features from 2019. Let's start with the arts. In January, KPBS traveled to Imperial Valley, where the Old Globe Theater took its show on the road. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando shows us how Shakespeare is helping inmates rehabilitate.
For some people, attending a production of Shakespeare is something they might take for granted. But for the inmates at Cinderella State Prison, seeing A Midsummer Night's Dream live was a new experience to savor.
Masters, spread yourselves!
It was a beautiful performance. It was more than what I expected. This is my first time ever being a part of anything like this, so it was new to me. It's a good thing.
Oh, it was great because the performers were so engaged with the audience that it made you feel like you're a part of it.
I will have Peter Quince write a ballad of this dream, and it shall be called Bottom Stream, because it has no bottom, and I will sing it the latter end of the play before the Duke, peradventure, to make it the more gracious, I will sing it at Thisby's death.
Those performers were part of Globe for All, which provides free performances of plays throughout San Diego, including in prisons. Last March, the Globe hosted a conference focused on Shakespeare in prisons. One of the participants was Kurt Tuftelin, founder of the Shakespeare Behind Bars program.
The reason that I use Shakespeare is because he writes about every story that any human being could ever encounter, whether it's now or 400 years ago. And he writes about outsiders.
It's outsiders and those on the margins of society that Tuftelin wanted to reach. The Globe decided to do its own version of Shakespeare Behind Bars because one of its core values is to show that theater matters, and that it can matter to even those on the fringes of society. So it initiated two programs, Reflecting Shakespeare, which engages prisoners through classroom examination of the Bard's text, and Globe for All.
Here they come now. Please enjoy William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Miss Erica was one of the teaching artists at the Globe for All performance last November at Cinderella.
If you want to talk about theater mattering, having a direct effect on people, what we're doing here and what I have the privilege to do week on week with the inmates here at Cinderella, that's the heart of it. I've seen people completely transform, and I'm not talking about gaining acting skills. I'm talking about learning about connecting with other people, learning that hard work has an effect, that you will actually accomplish something, learning what putting your heart and soul into something and having it give back to you. And watching a group of people go through that is transformative. Today, theater mattered to a lot of people.
Oh, it's very important because it feels that somebody cares that we see something from out there that we get inspired.
Some may question why we should care about enriching the lives of those who have committed crimes and are serving time. Shakespeare plays, such as The Tempest, advocate for kindness, compassion, and forgiveness. So perhaps Freedom Bradley Ballantyne takes his cue from the Bard when he says that those in prison are just people who have made mistakes and are paying for them, and we should do all we can to rehabilitate them.
Most of the work that we do really centers on people taking stock in their life and using Shakespeare's words, because he talked about so many different aspects of the human condition to really apply to their lives and see a way out. We've also seen that it gives people a sense of worth.
People like inmate Sephiron Scorza.
For me, this is very important. This is important because it offers an opportunity of change. It offers hope to those who may have lost hope.
I really want people to know that these programs work. that these programs change people, that these programs reduce the recidivism rates.
The Globe returns to Centinela next month to once again show how a playwright who's been dead for 4 centuries can help teach inmates about empathy, introspection, and perhaps even about how to find a way to succeed outside of prison. Through its programs, the Globe is proving that theater matters, even behind bars. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
2019 also gave us the 50th Comic-Con International. More than 130,000 people attended this year's 5-day event. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. This year, organizers and the city worked out a new agreement to keep Comic-Con in San Diego through 2024. The Padres were also a big draw in the gas lamp this year with new stars like Manny Machado. For one fan, Petco Park was just one stop on a season-long journey. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has his story.
Now drives one the other way. Blackman going back, looking up, it is gone, a home run.
While the Padres were hitting home runs Monday, there was a different type of craft going on in the stands.
This park I've always wanted to come to just because of the backdrop here. I thought, right, I want to be up there behind home plate somewhere and be able to capture the buildings and the city of San Diego.
Andy Brown is an artist who was born near London and now lives in South Korea.
So that was Coors Field, the Rockies versus the Dodgers.
He's embarking on a project to paint all 30 Major League Baseball ballparks.
To me, baseball's a game with just so much depth to it. There's like so many levels, and I always feel like I'm learning something new with it, and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's great history and great characters and great ballparks.
2-2. Driven to center field. Desmond going back, looking up. Myers has left the building.
Brown has been to a handful of ballparks and says people have been supportive of his project.
It's really nice to see people's belief in what I'm doing and people's enjoyment in what I'm doing. And it can be very young fans. You know, I had a little girl come up to me and tell me she was an artist as well, and we had to talk about art, and then I get all sorts of different people come and talk to me about it.
Brown hopes to paint all 30 MLB ballparks by the end of this season. He then plans to display his artwork near the Baseball Hall of Fame.
At the end of the trip, I'm going to kind of finish up on the East Coast, so I want to take him to Cooperstown, and I want to have him in an exhibition there at the Hall of Fame or a gallery nearby.
There's a hot shot, picked it short by Tatis, who gets up and throws to first in time.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
There are so many ways you can keep up with our rich content at KPBS. One platform that really grew this year is KPBS Podcasts. From daily shows like KPBS Midday Edition to the critically acclaimed Only Here, we have a little bit of everything. You can find KPBS Podcasts on all major platforms and always at kpbs.org. Immigration remained a top story in 2019, and this fall it was the focus of an exhibit at Liberty Station. If you had to go to a whole new place, what would you bring with you? I met the artist who talked to me about how a simple object can hold the memories of a lifetime.
When you walk into the New Americans Museum, you may wonder where the art exhibit is. But if you look closer, you'll see a penknife, a bell, a figurine. And if you look even closer, you will learn about the stories embedded in these objects.
Each one of these individual stories come together as a chorus, in my view.
Carrie Ann Quick is the artist in residence here.
When you start with something specific, something completely surprising can unfold, something you never would have access to otherwise.
Something specific like a typewriter.
Like a typewriter, yes, yes.
For her exhibit called A Portrait of People in Motion, she spent over a year gathering treasured objects from San Diego residents. But more importantly, she gathered the stories that accompany them.
If we can feel some of that emotion about what it's like to try to figure out how to live in a new place, then maybe we can empathize with those who are experiencing the most extreme version of that discomfort.
The item is scanned and then 3D printed or laser engraved to leave behind what Carrie Ann calls a ghost. Transparent with faint detail, yet still teeming with the story of how it came to San Diego.
The story is the art piece. The objects that are represented here, they're just a way in to those stories. And yes, the objects are transparent, And that's on purpose.
Some objects are made of clear resin, others are acrylic.
The light, as it projects through the laser engraved surface, it creates a shadow where the writing almost becomes legible.
At first glance, they're hard to see against the stark white wooden furniture, designed to look like furniture in a home. But looking closer is exactly what Carrie Ann wants you to do.
And when they look closer and they wonder what the thing is that they're looking at, they are given access to the story that is behind it.
Carrie Ann also recorded the oral histories of each piece that can be played by dialing a number on your phone.
Welcome to a portrait of people in motion.
And then the corresponding number of the item.
My object is a jacket that when I was in Korea during the Korean War, this was a jacket that I, in effect, stole from the Army.
From 1971 to now, we've lived many places, and the recipes have gone with me.
My object is a little tiny Inuit figure that was given to me in 1945 by my first boyfriend, who was stationed in the Aleutians.
And I think just seeing it makes me feel at home, because I grew up seeing it.
The crux of what I'm trying to do here is to help people in general, feel something that might make them treat their neighbor a little bit better.
And as the sound of plane engines roar above this little museum under the San Diego flight path, it offers a subtle reminder that we are all people in motion.
And starting in March, Carrie Ann Quick's art will be on display for a year at the San Diego International Airport as part of the exhibition's program. It's a fairy tale ending for an Oceanside woman with a passion for costume making. Back in September, KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar met Mandy Pursley. As you're about to see, her story is one about inclusion for kids across the country.
Now, said her godmother, are you ready to go? Cinderella looked down at her clothes. She hated to seem ungrateful, but she could hardly go to a ball dressed like this.
Once upon a time in Oceanside lived a woman, Mandy, her husband, Ryan, and their 8-year-old daughter, Kaylee. Their tale is one of happiness, love, and family, but it wasn't always an easy one. Mandy was born without an arm.
They think that an amniotic band wrapped around it and just kept it from developing properly. So I've had my whole life to figure out how to adapt and do the things that I want to do.
After spending her childhood bouncing from place to place with her father, who was a pastor, Mandy eventually settled down in Florida. It was there that Mandy met Ryan.
I'm so fortunate that I found my own Prince Charming. He is so sweet and accepting and supportive in real life, too.
The two fell in love. Ryan, a Marine, was living in San Diego. He flew his new love to California, where the couple went to their own ball, the Marine Corps Ball. Eventually, they got married and had a baby girl.
It's our second Valentine's Day. I went out and bought her a sewing machine because in the Marine Corps, my job is parachute rigger or flight equipment technician. We basically sew and repair fabric things that the aircrew use. So I know how to use a sewing machine. I bought her a sewing machine because she is a theater arts major and she had her own little book of costumes she wanted to design for theaters.
It was that hobby that ended up transforming Mandy into a fairy godmother herself. She created some costumes for her daughter and friends, but then she got inspired.
My daughter had been studying Cinderella stories at school, and I realized that there were all these beautiful tales from around the world, but there were still no princesses who looked like me. And so I just had the thought, if this character doesn't exist, I'm going to create her.
She spent 60 hours creating a Cinderella ball gown and another 40 creating one for her Prince Charming. She wasn't sure exactly what she wanted to do with it all, but she knew she wanted to highlight and celebrate her difference.
When I was growing up, I rarely saw anybody who looked like me on television, but I still didn't see amputee women being portrayed as beautiful or strong, and so it took me a really long time to recognize that the things that make us different and unique can actually be really positive traits.
And that was the twist. Mandy decided instead of a glass slipper, her Cinderella would have a glass arm. After telling friends about her plan, she was linked up to a sculptor in Arizona who took one of her prosthetic arms and created a glass-looking one out of clear resin. She posted the pictures on her Facebook, and overnight, the post went viral with thousands of likes.
I've actually been amazed that everybody has been so positive and encouraging. You know, it's kind of scary to put yourself out there on the internet like this, but it's been incredible how everyone has just had positive messages to convey.
She now has received messages and pictures from families across the United States who say she's an inspiration. Her Prince Charming says all of this couldn't be happening to a better person.
I'm very proud of her. Definitely. She definitely deserves it. She's a very sweet person, a very compassionate person for people.
Mandy has created a new Facebook page where she's invited her followers to share their own stories about celebrating their differences.
I began to realize, you know, this is something really special, and I at least wanted kids who were like me, who had some kind of physical difference or a limb difference, to be able to see it, to maybe inspire them that they can be the hero of their own story too.
She says this is just the beginning.
The lightest tap, the gentlest touch, and she was dressed in a gown of gold and silver.
And that was Priya Sridhar reporting. Mandy says her Cinderella story continues to evolve, and she wants to help put the happy in the ever afters of many more children who might feel a little different. If you want to check out her Facebook page she created, it's called Be the Spark Cosplay. Science sparked some of our memorable and colorful stories of 2019. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani spent some time at UC San Diego, where she found a virtual reality experience unlike any other.
While it looks like I'm enjoying a vacation in the middle of ancient Greece right now, I'm actually not. I'm in the middle of 70 high-resolution screens in a virtual reality cave at the Qualcomm Institute on the UC San Diego campus. And even cooler, I got to speak to the software developer behind it all. Within this 360-degree structure, a bright digital art piece is bouncing countless color pixels towards me. It's powered by 35 computers.
Here we are in the Sun Cave. The Sun Cave is a virtual reality environment that can display 500 million pixels, and it's with that the highest resolution virtual reality environment on the planet.
Jürgen Schulz, the computer scientist who developed the software for this project, says he's pretty sure it is the highest resolution cave in the world because no one has contradicted Qualcomm researchers yet. Schulz says UCSD researchers, or even companies that want to rent out this cave filled with 4K resolution screens, can use it to display data in three-dimensional format. For instance, an excavation site in Israel that was captured with drone technology and can be navigated on the screen through a controller.
And the moment you hold it, that's when you start the motion, and then you just slightly move your hand in the direction that you want to fly. And the more you move your hand, the faster you're going to fly.
Schulz also shows off a floating hemoglobin blood cell protein that researchers can view in depth, and a mock-up for a new student center that he says an architectural firm could use to show a client what it might be like to walk up a flight of stairs.
Then you can go up the stairs. You can look at, what do you see when you're up here on the stairs? Is it important that there's something interesting in the background there or not?
The point of this data visualization is that it allows the viewer to see more complex data than in a static 2D format. And it's all produced with 2 computing labs worth of energy and processing power. Though, Schulz says, these types of caves aren't new.
To render just something on the cave walls, that's not that new. The algorithms are the same. They just had to be adapted to this particular geometry. But we then developed new algorithms that allowed us to render more points and more higher resolution data sets in the space because there's just so much more detail that the displays can produce.
The Sun Cave was built about 2 years ago. It follows Qualcomm's Star Cave, which only supported around 60 million pixels, just 10% of what this cave can render. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
2019 brought the end of an era at the San Diego Zoo. The 2 remaining pandas were sent back to China. They were here on loan as part of a long-standing conservation program that lasted for decades. Zoo staff say they're still working with China to continue the program, but there's no plan yet for any new pandas to be sent to San Diego. At the zoo's Safari Park in North County, 2019 was a success story for its southern white rhinos. Just last month, zookeepers welcomed their 100th birth. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson got an update on the important recovery effort.
The rhino calf is curious, playful, and energetic. The youngster doesn't stray far from mother Amani, but it loves to push around the stuff on the floor of the barn it calls home. Keeper Johnny Capiro says all of the 132-pound calf's nourishment comes from mom's milk, and the youngster is expected to gain about 100 pounds a month.
They will nurse and stay with mom up until about a year and a half, but just like typical kids or toddlers, they will start mouthing solid foods.
Capiro says Amani is a doting but relaxed mom.
For now, with these chilly temperatures, especially overnight, they're spending a lot of time in the barn. We did get both of them out into the yard yesterday, and we saw some nice calm behaviors. We saw the calf running around and Amani feeling comfortable and confident just watching her calf run around.
The calf is the first ever conceived with chilled semen and only the second at the park to be the product of artificial insemination. Research physiologist Barbara Durant says the mom, Amani, is one of 6 southern white females poised to help recover the critically endangered northern white rhino species. There are only 2 living northern white rhinos. Durant wants to eventually implant a northern white embryo into Amani and 5 other members of her herd.
The first embryo transfers that we'll do will be southern white rhino embryos into southern white rhino recipients. Once that we have developed that technique, embryo transfer has never been successful in rhinos yet, anywhere. So once we have perfected that technique, by that time in the lab we will have grown up some northern white rhino embryos, and we'll have those ready to transfer into these recipients.
Durant says eventually this calf could also become a surrogate for the northern white recovery effort, but right now the focus is on making sure the calf plays and grows like a normal rhino. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Now, this might have been the most Instagrammable story of 2019. Back in March, the super bloom came to life, and KPBS took Evening Edition on the road. Here's Ebony Monet with a closer look at those flowers.
So we're here now at the Visitor Center to find out more about the plants and vegetation that make up this super bloom. And I'm joined now by Nan Sturman, the host of A Growing Passion, to find out more about these flowers especially.
Right. That's why I brought my camera, got my hat. We're going to go hunt wildflowers.
Let's go. I've never been out here. How does this compare to?
Well, this normal years, this would be a really great bloom. I mean, it's very consistent. The purple, there's blue, there's yellow, there's kind of this white. I mean, there's a lot going on here, but I'm told that it's even better down there.
Wow. Obviously, folks are here for the super bloom. So what signifies a super bloom and how does it all come about?
Well, the super bloom is when, it's just our term for when there's like an amazing amount of flowers out. And what's happened this year is that there were rains in early fall. It's really interesting. There's always seeds in the soil. We don't see them, but when the plants finish flowering, of course, they release their seeds. So there's what we call a seed bank in the soil all the time. Those early rains started washing away. There's water-soluble chemicals in those seeds that keep them from germinating, from sprouting. And so the rain starts to wash those away, and then the temperature's just right, and there's just the right amount of moisture, and they sprout. And then we kept getting rain, and it's been really nice and cool, and you get this kind of bloom. Everything is just right, and boom, you get a bloom. And there's another one just about to bloom over there. Look at the leaves. The leaves are all crenulated.
Now, what would you say to someone who maybe came out here, sees these beautiful flowers, like maybe this beautiful purple one here, and got so inspired that they wanted to try to plant it in their own garden?
Okay. If you live here in Anza, Borrego, and you could find seeds for the desert sand verbena, then you could plant it in your own garden. But if you don't live in the desert, this will not grow for you. This is adapted to these kinds of harsh conditions, really intense sun, very little rainfall, and the kind of soil, which, you know, you can see it looks like beach sand. So there are other verbenas that you can grow that are adapted to garden conditions, not this one.
Is it difficult for other types of plants to take root and grow in this type of soil?
That's a really good question. Really, all you need to do is look out here, and the plants that will grow here are growing here, and the ones that don't grow here for a reason. That's just not the right conditions for them.
Nan, thank you so much for being a great guide. My first trip out here, it was an excellent experience.
I'm so glad to hear that. You're going to come again, right?
Definitely. So that about wraps up our flower tour.
You can find these and all of our stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. We leave you tonight with a performance from our KPBS Midday Concert Series recorded over the summer. This is music from the Euphoria Brass Band. They'll also be part of tomorrow's Holiday Bowl Parade. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.